Thank you for joining us for the Miami Valley Salute to Veterans. I am Cindy LaPointe-Dafler, a volunteer interviewer for the Miami Valley Communications Council. My husband was killed in Vietnam in 1969. He was awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously and is one of only 3 conscientious objectors to ever have received the Medal of Honor. So why am I the host for this? I love being around our veterans and talking with them, hearing their stories and their thoughts. If my husband had survived the war, he would have been a veteran too. So it's my way of remembering his legacy. We hope that hearing these memories from veterans of our community will help us all better understand the dedication of those who served. Today, we'll interview Tim Mullen of Centerville, Ohio, a Navy veteran who served from 1966 to 1969, and he will tell us the story of his time in the military. Thank you for being here with us today, Tim.
Thank you, Cindy, for having us.
Okay. When you went into the military, did you enlist?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I understand that. Why did you choose the Navy?
I've always enjoyed being around the water, and my father was in the Air Force. The Navy was just intrigued me. I wanted to go to sea.
Okay. When you went in, what was your MOS?
Well, we went into boot camp, and they tested you. They thought I'd be a good CS, commissary man. So maybe that I would. Anyway, I also tested well, and my knowledge of small craft boat handling. I always liked being around small craft and boats. So after graduation from Great Lakes, I was sent to the Naval Amphibious Assault Boat School in Little Creek, Virginia for a year. The first 6 weeks I was trained in landing craft operation, the Higgins boat, the assault boat that was used in World War II. Uh-huh. But and then what we would do during that year is sailors from the fleet would come in for training for operations. We had certain beaches there that we would run the landing craft up onto, and how to operate it, how to if you get stuck on a sandbar, how to get off things, stuff like that.
And what is this boat like?
It's the Higgins, the LCVP, landing craft vehicle personnel, holds basically a platoon of about 36 combat veterans, or a small Jeep type thing. Then we also had what was called a Mike boat, Mike 6, which had twin engines, and it was a much bigger boat. And it's all craft that the bow of the boat would come down so they could.
Yes, like they did in World War II.
Yes, correct.
Yes. So that was your training.
That was my first duty assignment. Like I said, the first 6 weeks I was actually being trained by the petty officers who were stationed there, and then I became a assault boat coxswain, which is the operator of the landing craft, and we would absolutely teach sailors that come in from the amphibious Navy. We called them the Gator Navy, but it was the amphibious Navy is the Navy. It does take the Marines to the beach and that type of thing.
And drop them off.
That's correct.
Yeah. And then you withdraw.
Right.
Okay. What did you think of it's not called basic training in the Navy.
Well, it was basic training. It was up Great Lakes. I went to Great Lakes in February of 1966, and I've never shoveled so much snow in my entire life.
Really?
Oh yeah, we had to shovel snow on a grinder so we could march on the grinder. So we were there for almost 3 months, and a lot of snow coming off of Lake Michigan.
Yes. And what did they teach you there? I mean, besides marching?
Oh, typical, seamanship and all. I was also in a company that was a drill team, so I was part of the drill team at graduation. I think we performed 4 or 5 graduations before our own graduation.
Mm-hmm.
They'd have a graduation every week
I see.
of companies coming in and going.
So, and you took where did you take your advanced training again?
Little Creek, Virginia.
Okay.
And when ended up being there an entire year before I got my next set of orders to a ship in Norfolk. That was the USS Sierra AD-18. It was a destroyer tender. And there's a story there if you want to hear it.
I do.
As I said, coming from the boat school, I was an assault boat coxswain, which is a pre-designation for one of the things becoming a bosun mate. Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'd already taken my bosun mate test, and I was going to be a bosun mate later on in, must have been February, I believe, of 67. Anyway, got orders to the Sierra, and I got there about 4 weeks before I was to become an NCO. And, well, anybody was an E3 or below, no matter what your MOS is, you board that ship, you report to the commissary deck, to the mess decks, you get 90 days of mess hall work. Okay?
Oh, gosh.
Well, I was there one day, and the chief bosun mate of the ship came down and, Mullen, where's Mullen? In the scullery doing something. He says, come with me. He'd already talking to the chief of the mess deck, saying, this man, I need him on the boat deck. So I escaped my scullery duties and went straight, and I was assigned to a Liberty boat, which was a 50-foot boat that the maintenance and care of that, and also worked on the captain's gig something. So I became a petty officer, and I thought the Sierra, being a destroyer tender, repairs destroyers in the fleet.
I see.
Well, the Sierra hadn't been out to sea for over 2 years. She switches from one side of the pier to the other so these guys can maintain their sea duty. I thought, well, I'm fine, So I was there only about 7 months. I must have really upset somebody because I got orders for Adak, Alaska. Adak, Alaska. Where the heck is Adak, Alaska? Finally looked it up on the map, and it's a little island way out in the Aleutians. Mm-hmm. The second island from Attu is the furthest one, and there's Adak. And who did I upset to get these orders? So another story on that is I was going on 30 days leave. I went home, hitchhiked, went home, brought one of the family cars back. So I load up all my stuff from the barracks and head back home again. Well, I get a speeding ticket in Warrenton, Virginia, and noticed the show up, 3 days or 4 days later. Yeah. I didn't show up. I thought, I'm going to Alaska. They can come and get me. But I was on the ADAC for about a month, and I got caught they had different levels of, you have XO mass or you got captain's mass, depending on the degree of whatever you did. I appeared before the executive officer, and he wanted to know about this speeding ticket. I said, I told him I was passing a truck at the time, and he says, Warrenton, Virginia is one of the places that sit there for sailors. It's a known speed trap. He says, just don't ever go back to Virginia. So,
I like that.
So anyway, but on ADAC, my orders, there were 3 bosun mates on the East Coast who received the same set of orders, and 2 of them got there before I did. They were assigned to the master at arms part, and I was assigned to base security, working out of my MOS. In the base security, I was in the actual security department. There were lots of civilian contractors on ADAC. We did background checks, different things. Issued driver's license for the island. Twice a month, we'd have a ship come in. What type of ship do I want to call it? It's merchant marine ship, bringing in supplies for the island and stuff like. Well, the sailors would have to load or unload them. Well, being a rated bosun mate, I was trained on a yard and stay crane. You should empty. They'd have sailors down in the bottom of the ship, and then bring the hook up the cargo, and you'd bring it up the yard and stay crane. Cars, it doesn't matter anything. There's always, though, several skids of beer, and you'd always bump that skid and not damage a few cases of beer, so they put those off to the sides. But ADAC was a unique place. I learned to ski there. There's no ski there. I learned salmon fishing in the spring, Alaskan king crab. I mean, just a lot for the outdoors person.
So am I right in saying it was not as bad as you thought it might be?
I didn't see a tree, and it was all tundra, right. And single sailors weren't allowed in housing developments and things like that. But for the people who were able to bring families up and stuff like that, but there was enough activities there. Lots and lots of Quonset huts were on the island from World War II. So different divisions and departments would have a weekend Quonset hut where we could go out and play cards, drink beer, whatever sailors do. And it was very enjoyable. I do remember August of '68. They got up to 68 degrees. Well, I have some slides at home of old Tim skinny dipping on lakes up there. There were about 3 or 4 of us that did it. So
it was still cold.
It was still cold. That was a 12 and a half month assignment, and then I received orders to the USS Coral Sea, which CVA 43. It was an aircraft carrier out of San Francisco. So I came home on 30 days leave and then went out there. And the ship was currently deployed on a Vietnam assignment, and there were probably half a dozen of us that were waiting on the ship, and they were trying to decide what MOSs were needed. They were going to fly them out to the Philippines and catch a ship there on her way back. But they didn't pull my name, so I did temporary duty there for 3 weeks till the ship came in, and then that was the spring of '69. In the summer of '69, we went up to Bremerton, Washington, and went into dry dock for 2 months, and got a complete overhaul of the ship. Back to Alameda, which is the island across from San Francisco that we were home ported at. Mm-hmm. And must have been ship. We were due to go back to Vietnam on the last week of September. Well, about 4 days before we were scheduled to leave, they pulled about 60 of us into the mess deck. We were sailors who were going to be discharged during the deployment, the first 4.5 months of the deployment. My scheduled discharge date was going to be February of '70. That'd be my 4 years. So they offered us X amount of dollars, depending on your MOS, to re-up. Mm-hmm. And I think in my particular one, the highest one I remember was $10,000. The mine, I think it was offered $6,500. And 1969, that's a lot of money.
Right.
my wife that was such a homebody and all, we're going to get out. So I was transferred to Treasure Island, and 3 weeks later was discharged or separated. They called it separated because I wasn't actually discharged until my 6-year commitment was up. And so I missed the deployments of the Coral Sea on both ends.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah.
and so thus I'm considered a Vietnam era
Oh, yeah.
veteran and stuff. But, it's just the way it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about some of the people you served with that you remember.
Which duty station? That's what's unusual about
Any of them.
Most people, they get out of boot camp and they're at one duty station the entire 3 or 4 years. And either somebody was doing something wrong or whatever, but 4 duty stations in almost 4 years.
Sure.
So, but people, I have a good friend in Pensacola, Florida that I've gone down I've seen him. A good friend who I lost just 2-3 years ago, who was on ADAC. He and I were inseparable on ADAC, and then I got orders to the Coral Sea. He got orders to Vietnam in a Seabee battalion. But we reconnected years later on Facebook, and then he was killed in a motorcycle accident. But I would not trade my 4 years, almost 4 years in the Navy for anything.
Mm-hmm.
It gave me discipline. It gave me, I found myself. I don't think I went in February of '66. I graduated from Centerville High School in '65.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my diploma says Washington Township High School, Centerville, Ohio. I think it became officially Centerville in either '66 or '67.
Mm-hmm. Our
letter jackets all said Center, had to see and stuff, but it was officially Center or Washington Township High School.
Mm-hmm.
That was an experience. I was raised in the east end of Dayton and Belmont. Went to Belmont my freshman year. Came out here to Centerville in '62, and I think there were more kids in my freshman class at Belmont than all 3 classes at Centerville. And it was very, very interesting. But
yeah, I'm going to pause for a moment, and we are recording an interview with Tim Mullen of Centerville on Miami Valley Communications Council, and the podcast is Miami Valley Salute to Veterans. Okay.
I can continue.
Please.
I've been very fortunate to be saluted for my military service. I went on honor flight with Dayton Honor Flight in the Memorial Day weekend of 2019. My son, who lives in Indianapolis, came over, and he was my guardian, and it was probably one of the most emotional days of my life. It was the interaction with my son and I was just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see, Veterans Day, November of 21, myself and 3 other gentlemen from St. Leonard's, Fred Poe, who was one of them, were honored down at by the city of Centerville for their Veterans Day at Stubbs Park. And Mayor Compton introduced me. That was very, very special also.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. How about any humorous events?
Well, I told you about the skinny dipping in Alaska.
That was pretty funny, right?
that was really funny. I can't think of one right now.
Anything unusual other than skinny dipping?
Did have an unusual event on the Coral Sea. We were scheduled after we'd gotten back from Bremerton, Washington, and we had to do sea trials. I mean, the ship's been around since the early 50s, but they had to do sea trials before the deployment. back to the Westpac, and being in San Francisco Bay, the ship can only go in and out during low tide because the conning tower would hit the Golden Gate Bridge or the San Francisco Oakland Bay Bridge. When we were scheduled to leave, it was very, very foggy. It gets foggy in San Francisco quite often. Well, our surface radar was down at the time. Well, the captain decided he had to make the decision to get out because one of the other carriers was going to come in the next day, so we had to be out. And so we had watches all over the ship, but there was a tug that was pulling a barge coming in, and we separated the bow of the Coral Sea, hit the cable that was pulling the barge, and the barge went down the starboard side of the ship, and the tug went down the port side of the ship until we got things stopped. I mean, it was pretty hairy for the people on the barge and on the tug.
Yes.
And
was there a lot of damage to all of them?
There was a lot of damage to the smaller ones, so there was just repairs to the bow that were the deck force could take care of. So.
Oh my gosh. So you served and you were discharged?
I was discharged in October 15th of 69 from Treasure Island. And we spent about 3 weeks coming back home across the United States. I got home in first week of November. And got a job in December at Monarch Marketing Systems in Miamisburg, which is now Avery Dennison. Spent 30 years there, and started out as an assembler, and I finished up as production manager of their service bureau. We had operations in Hong Kong, Singapore, and here in Dayton, so got to do some traveling.
Yeah. So your wife was with you out in California?
My first wife, yes.
Yeah.
She was, yes. And then we became separated in early 70s, and then I was married to my wife, who I was married to for 44 years. Ellie and I moved to St. Leonard in February of 2018. I lost her to COVID in 2021.
Oh.
So, but it's where we are. We're St. Leonard. There's just so much to do. We got the Veterans Organization and Bob, who you interviewed, and Fred. We're all part of that.
That organization is very supportive, I imagine.
Oh yes, very supportive.
Are you a member of any other veterans organizations?
Oh, the American Legion, the Post 598 in Kettering.
Okay.
I've been there for years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add?
If a young man or a young lady aren't sure what they want to do with themselves, spend 2 years in the military or 3, whatever the current thing is. It's, it's, like I said earlier, I would not trade my 4 years for anything.
Yep. Is there anything else you'd want to share with the audience about your service or your veterans experiences?
Just very, very proud of it. Once again, the reception. One thing I do remember when I was coming back from Adak, Alaska, we flew into Anchorage, and I got a plane. Well, there were probably 20 guys coming back from Vietnam on the plane also. And they told us, as soon as you get into Seattle, as soon as you get into civilian clothes, get into civilian clothes. And that's a shame.
Yes.
Okay? I mean, we joined, and we where they told us to go, and the way that era of veteran was treated is, it's. I would hope it would never be that way again.
Well, I think the Vietnam era veterans have made quite a difference in how today's veterans are being treated.
Well, I think so too.
They're being honored and recognized, and they can wear their uniforms when they travel.
My honor flight experience was just fantastic, and our reception we got when we got into Washington, and just it's the homecoming none of us got.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And the Dayton honor flight people just did a fantastic job. And if there's anybody out there who's ever thought about maybe should I go sign up for it, because it's just an outstanding experience. Yeah.
Do you ever have any reunions with other people besides the two you mentioned?
There's we had a reunion, Coral Sea reunion. Oh boy, it's been 15 years ago maybe, out in San Diego, and that was a good time. The USS Midway is in San Diego now. That is the sister ship of the Coral Sea. Mm-hmm. You walk aboard, it's a museum now, and you walk aboard the Midway, and it's like walking aboard the Coral Sea. I mean, it's almost exact. And the Coral Sea didn't make the museum. Mm-hmm. It's scrap metal somewhere, razor blades or whatever they do with that old metal. So.
Gosh, I bet going there brought back a lot of memories.
It did. Right. So the birthing areas, just everything was. Wow.
Well, good.
Okay.
What would you like people to know or remember from your story?
Just how I'm proud to have served. I've never thought of it that way, Cindy. My story.
It is your story.
It is my story, and I'm just one of millions of guys and gals who have done their thing to serve the country, and I'm very proud of that.
Good. Well, Tim Mullen, I appreciate you coming in and letting us talk with you, and I'm sure our audience appreciates it as well.
Well, I appreciate being here and giving the opportunity.
Very good.